Hi kids, we are going to go over how to make a whirly bird, also known as a propeller on a stick. We're going to go over the different materials that you need to use, cover some of the principles involved in a propeller, and show you some techniques that will make you successful in doing this project. If we look over on the table, you will see you don't need a lot of things to do this, but you do need to know how to use them and when to use them. What we have here is a combination square. You can use a ruler, some kind of measuring device. Got some sandpaper. We have a couple of files that's going to help you do some shaping. One of the files is flat and the other is a half round. We've got a utility knife. You will probably have to check this out from your instructor. If you do check this out, be sure that you check it back in, and if you see these lying around, always give them to your instructor. These should not be lying around. Depending on where you work at, you might be working with some carving tools. Once again, these are probably checked out. Be sure they get checked back in. The materials that you need to do this project are a little piece of wood and a dowel, and they are going to go together to make a final project that looks like this. So what we're going to do first is talk about following directions and safety. This is a fairly safe project. But it is important that you're still wearing your safety goggles and that you don't have any jewelry or long hair that's going to get tangled up in what you're doing. You want to be comfortable when you're doing this project. Most of you will be working at a woodworking table. Be sure you give yourselves enough room to work. There's no need for everybody to be at one table. You want to spread out. Be familiar with what is at your table. You're probably going to need a woodworking vise. They should all be working and in good condition. Once again, you'll need to share if there is a demand for them. So you've been given your piece of wood and you've been given your dowel. You can pretty much set the dowel aside. You're not going to need that until you're all done with it. First thing you're going to do when you get your piece of wood. If it does not have a hole drilled in the middle, you're going to have to measure the length of your wood and determine how long that is and make a mark in the exact center. And that is a center in this direction and in this direction. This piece happens to be 6 inches long. Half of 6 inches is 3 inches, and half of 3/4 of an inch is 3/8 of an inch. A mark was made and a hole was drilled using this drill bit. Check with your instructor on what size dowel and drill bit you're going to be using. After that hole is made, you're going to want to make a couple of lines on either side of the hole. And this is an area that you're not going to be shaping or carving at the beginning. I recommend after you make those marks, you make them all around your piece of wood. They can be traced on if you have a steady hand, or even more accurately, use the combination square. So it looks like this. Next thing we're going to do is look at the end grain and draw a straight line from diagonal to diagonal. The next step is to take your pencil and to draw a curved line on top . And it's at this point we're going to talk a little bit about the aerodynamic principle which is going on. This curved line on top is actually just a little bit longer than this straight line that we first drew. As air passes over this top part, it has farther to go. That means the air has to travel faster to reach one side. The air is traveling slower on the bottom line, and it's that difference in pressure that gives your propeller lift. After we've drawn that on one side, we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Now you've made all your marks, and you're ready to set it up and start carving. Hi kids, we're back. We're going to go over the steps to carve away the pieces of wood that we don't need to leave that airfoil design, which is going to give our Whirly Bird lift. Now, a little secret that I don't tell everybody is lightly score along these pencil lines in the area that's going to be removed. You'll find that when you are shaving away this material, if you have these lines scored, the piece will break off instead of running all the way down the length of your piece of wood. Now you always want to hold this utility knife so you are shaving away. You don't want to bring it up to yourself. You don't want your hand below where the knife is going. Now some people might forget this. If you see somebody who has their hand in a dangerous position, please stop them. Remember, watch how I'm doing it. Try to do it that same way. You may be left-handed. It doesn't really matter. The technique is the same. Shave away from your body. Don't have your other hand in a position where it can get cut. Okay, so I've scored on this line, and now I'm going to start shaving down. Just take little pieces. Thin cuts. And continue on until you have removed all the material not drawn by your pencil mark. All right, we've spent just a couple of minutes to remove the material from this top half. We're going to turn the piece around, and we're going to continue to shape it on the other side, the part that has the longer kind of a bubble-shaped pencil line. So we'll keep working on that. Okay, so we have shaped the rough outline of one side of our Whirly Bird. It's still fairly rough at this stage. With some of the other tools that we talked about, the files and the sandpaper, that's our time now to do some more fine-tuning of it to give it that nice rounded corners. We still need to do the other side, but the technique that you've done with this side is exactly what you're going to do on this side. So we will continue on at the clamp here and the vise and keep working. All right, so we're making some good progress on our Whirly Birds here. You can see the before and after stages. I'm going to slowly rotate these so you can kind of see what is being done. And at this point, you're going to want to stay at your vise. You want to be a little bit careful now as you tighten this in there. You don't want to crack it or break it off. But now is a good time to take one of your files and do some gentle curving and shaping. Remember, the most effective way to use a file is one direction. You may have to stand up and move your body to be most effective. So you're going to continue shaping using your files. and do both sides, and then we'll go to our sandpaper. All right, if we go back to our original blank, you remember how we drew some lines, and this was an area that was not going to be carved or shaped yet. We're now ready to do something with that part. If we take a look at our example that we're working on, what we're trying to do with this middle part is to kind of transition the curves to go between the two ends of the Whirly Bird. Now, this is kind of a tricky thing to do. You're going to be using the same types of tools that you've been using. Be very careful as you do this part that you're always going away. You can either use the carving tools, the knives, or the files. Remember to take your time. The material is a little bit thin at this stage, so take your time and use good, proper form. Okay, I'm just doing some final touches here, getting some of the rough spots off using my sandpaper. Sometimes I like to try to give each end of the Whirly Bird a little round over there. You can choose to keep yours squared off. It should not affect the flight, but you can try it either way. See how it works. After you're done with the sanding, and your Whirly Bird should be smooth all over, you're now ready to get your dowel. A good length for these dowels is about 8 inches long. You're going to insert it into the hole that has been drilled. Should be a snug fit. Like that. I'm going to do that one more time. Should look like the letter T when it's all put together. Now we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and we're going to see how they fly.
Okay, we're just about ready to try the Whirly Birds out. Now when you put your stick in, sometimes if the fit is not very snug, you may want to use a little bit of carpenter's glue or Elmer's glue to glue the stick in. It needs a few minutes to set up. It takes a day for the glue to dry, but it will set up and be fairly secure in a few minutes. Now we have our first guest Whirly Bird flyer, Mr. Elliott. He's going to show us how his flies. Not bad for an amateur. And now we have, all the way from Cascade, Mr. Gessner. Much better flight, much better control. Thank you, gentlemen.